Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here with a new character review just before we get some of the new characters dropped tomorrow, which I can't wait to get to. I'm looking at Camillo today, who just came out last week as part of the new element selection quest, and really excited to just get him in the game and see how he interacts with some of the new characters and some of the potential meta going forward. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. The review breakdown, it's going to be a brief character overview, then my report card that I've created for different roles, character stat analysis, class and job overview, and then notable Esper vision card synergies with weapon optimization at the end. Those go super quick. Let's get into it. As a new light unit, the jobs Dragoon, Sniper, and Pugilist. Both of these jobs all exist in the game already, so nothing terribly new in the kit. The weapons are Spear, and he does equip armor, helmet, and accessories, so he does have access to those heavier, bulkier types of equipment, which actually is a big part of his staying power as a character overall. Move of 3 and jump of 4, so also incredible mobility as it pertains to getting through certain kinds of elevations. He's got a 10% weakness to dark, that's pretty standard for light units. And then for his other resistances, he's strongest against magic, 20%, but then strong next, 10% to missile, flat, 0% at slash, and then negative 10 on both pierce and strike. So there are some things to play with potentially if there are people coming after him with certain attack types, but nothing too egregious. The status ailment's nothing fantastic, 50% to paralyze, 10% to slow, and then 50% to stop. And not that stop's not a good one, but you just don't see it as often anymore, so it's good, but not great. The report card, though, this is where things kind of get interesting. So his effective HP, and for those of you that aren't aware of what effective HP is, it's basically the health pool of the character, but then you adjust it for essentially the different types of resistances, defense, and SPR, and it essentially becomes not only just how many health points do they have, but theoretically, if they had incoming damage of that attack type, how much damage would need to be done to kill them. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's a fairly standard concept in a lot of different analytical tools, but for now, just go with me here. Effective HP is an A. He's got an absolutely enormous health pool for a DPS, and although we saw some negative 10% resist there, overall, the magic one is pretty powerful, and still being flat to slash is also important. The physical HP one, it's still an A just because of the HP alone. A lot of times characters get higher grades here because they have great innate resists. He's not necessarily one of them, but the health pool is pretty high for a DPS, and the effective magic HP is out of this world, not only because of the innate 20% resistance to it, but he does have a magic barrier as well. So as it pertains to how much damage you need to do to him magically for a DPS, it's pretty off the charts compared to what the other characters have. His primary stat, though, attack stat, it's a B. He's actually kind of weak in that regard. It's not bad, it's just not amazing. So if we're looking at just some comparison units, I've equipped some passive abilities, and this is without espers or equipment. And if we're honing in on the attack stat in particular, 598 for Camillo, compared to someone like Eld who's 654, and then 9S who's 687. These are both Lancers or Dragoon type characters, so kind of comparable, and you can see, it's lower than average. It's not bad, but not also top of the charts. He's not going to be absolutely obliterating anything in his way. From that perspective, too, you can see HP 4078. It's right about on par with 9S, and 9S is the other really tanky DPS in the game, so Camillo's right there at the top of the list with 9S. In terms of agility, though, it's a C. He's straight average in terms of agility. 62 is like 1 point above the average. It's not bad, but he does need some external help to really get his turn order in line. Accuracy, also a C. Not bad, but he just needs help. He's like almost literally average for accuracy, and you can see that here. So the way he's essentially comparative to other units, if you were to give him his flurry counter passive, gives him 20% extra accuracy, I'll be honest with you, you're probably not going to have that on that office, so you're not going to benefit from that. So his total innate accuracy, 151% on an average of 146%, so he's like around there, but not great. For those of you that want to know more about these percentages, I do have a video explaining accuracy and evasion, link below, and will be thumbnail at the end of the video. So he does need some help from an accuracy standpoint. In terms of the stats, though, his luck is a little bit above average. His dexterity is the one that's really more above average, though, that's contributing to this, and also a big reason why he has a decent critical hit rate as well, because he's got a pretty decent dexterity stat overall. The evasion is a C. He's not an evade unit whatsoever. Average is 37, he's at 39, and most of that is due, again, the luck is nothing special, and then the agility is also nothing special, so nothing going on there. Movement is an A, purely because a jump of 4 enables you to do so much. It's just off the charts, and a lot of maps you can abuse because of that some other characters simply can't. His passives, I also give it an A. He's got a metric fuck ton of passives that we're going to talk about in a second. It allows him to be built, in multiple different ways, which is a really important part of a character's utility and potential lasting power, where they're not a one-trick pony. Obviously, if you do one thing extremely well, you can be a really great unit, but once the game starts to evolve, you might find less use. And I don't know if Camillo is one of those units. I don't think he's going to run into that. His counter abilities are a B. They're okay. They're not bad. They're unique enough that it gives him some variety in his kit, but nothing fantastic. The overall kit, I give it a B+. It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's really generic in terms of the sub-jobs and the regular job. There's nothing brand new to him in the game or really unique. And it's not that the abilities aren't great. They're okay. It's just that they're good for a purpose, and he does that purpose really well. The final grade overall is a B. He's not a bad character. He doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses. It's just that he's actually really relevant to the current state of the game. It's just that he's not anything that's above and beyond amazing either on a full grading scale. And we'll get into why. So general thoughts, fantastic anti-magic unit. So he's got the magic barriers you talked about, great magic EHP, high innate resist with 20%, 10 innate SPR right off the bat, and then his overall HP, he can add 15 defense from the Pugilist active ability as an option. So like he doesn't have to be only anti-magic. He also has some potential to still be a little bit of a bulkier character as DPS go. His great kit versatility. So 3 attack types, Pierce, Missile, and Strike, all to choose from potentially, where you can mix and match. Can reach up to 80 defense penetration innately, based off one of the abilities on the Sniper subjob. And he's got both individual and teammate buffs, which I like a lot, because when you're trying to manipulate certain AI movement, being able to have that flexibility goes a really long way to making a character have some options and what kind of maps and comps they can be used. And then finally, in terms of some of the utility, Barrier Break, Disable Confusion, all in the kit, so he's got some things to play with. A good addition to the light cast for variety. So if you look at the light cast, there are a couple really strong magic users. It's really slash heavy. Rob, Warrior Light, Cecil, characters like that. And although there are some sub jobs like Dragoon on Thancred and Warrior Light, you don't really get to abuse him that often. It's not really part of their strength, but Camillo is unique in that he is kind of off the beaten path from what we normally find in light units from that perspective, so it's nice to have him there. Statistically average, but a few downsides. Kind of mentioned that before. He doesn't have any glaring weaknesses. There's things that you obviously want to build for and cater toward, but there's nothing about him that you say, oh man, like I have to hedge this weakness or else he's going to get abused. That's really not the case. And then finally, no limit breaks. So that's kind of the thing about the element select characters. They don't come with limit breaks, which, say what you will, that actually is kind of a demerit to the character, though, where oftentimes limit breaks are really important team fight swayers, whether it's an apparel for an enemy or a buff to a teammate, just something to have an X factor. And that's why when I look at his kit, there isn't necessarily an X factor anywhere in his kit. There's some decent things, but nothing compared to the other characters in the broad scheme of the game. So the class and job overview, the passive abilities, this is what I was talking about. This is an incredible amount of passive abilities, and it allows you to build them in a bunch of different ways. So you're never going to use the jump, because you already got jump before, but being able to have some missile-related ones, so you could abuse the sniper sub-job if you wanted, where increased range, he's got another one, missile attack up, luck up, which is going to help his accuracy overall, and then other ones that overall help his DPS. Dreadlance Mastery is almost a must in my opinion for that defense penetration, in addition to the HP, but Warrior Spirit, not a bad one either, depending on if you're going against characters that don't have a lot of defense. So you can, again, kind of play with that, which is a really great part of a character's kit. And then finally, the Flurry Enhancement. I used to really like this ability, don't like it as much because I don't think Flurry Counter is that powerful of a counter ability. And the accuracy is really nice, but you could probably find other ways to give someone accuracy without gimping them and picking a passive for it. For the counter ability, so Dragon's Blade, pretty great, and I say that if only because he's got a very large health pool, so any HP he can absorb back goes a long way for his survivability. He's got some decent range, being 2 squares as opposed to the normal 1. Counter Smoke, also a really good one. I haven't seen it used to the degree that I think I would have liked in the game, just reading it on paper, but this is definitely a good one. You obviously don't have to heal damage or block damage or worry about survivability if you can decrease accuracy enough that people just can't hit you, so that's okay. And then Flurry Counter, I unfortunately have soured on this ability entirely. It's way too short range in my opinion, and quite honestly, strike damage doesn't hit enough for me to really feel like this is an impactful ability in the game anymore, unfortunately. The main job, Dragoon, so this one does have an X ability on it, Bedeviling Dive, and so overall, you have horizontal and vertical jump, those are pretty standard. Dragon Skin for an attack boost if you really want it. The thing I really like about this ability is not only just the chance to inflict confusion, but it's got a height of 5, meaning you can be like on basically almost any elevation, and he's going to be able to use it as an attack. And although it's only single target, it's relatively cheap at 24 AP. I just like the versatility that it can really not be hindered by any elevations when he's trying to use it. Dragon Dive is also a really good one. It's one of his only AoEs in his entire kit, so really important. It does have the cast time for the jump. Both of these do, no big deal. And then finally, the Magic Wall. This is a major part of his kit, being an anti-magic character potentially. So the Subjob, the Dragoon, I don't like this at all. It's not great. You're never going to use it. He doesn't need move or jump. And the decreased bravery is super niche. He never uses it because it doesn't have damage on it. So probably more for manual play or something niche. The Sniper Subjob, though, really do like this one, if only because of Barrier Break Arrow, particularly if it comes to Helena, where her TMR is so often paired with her that she can put on a barrier, so they can go for some of the cheese shot, whether it's Garvel or Sweetheart Salir. Being able to break a barrier is really, really important, and a lot of the magic users do have it on them, so very clutch ability to have on him as a sub-job. The rest of them aren't bad. Target share is the one where you can go to an ally. Target ability is the one that gives him another 40 defense penetration. Slow shot's okay, if not just a little bit niche, probably not using it. And arm shot I actually like a lot. It's one of my favorites in the game just because of how cheap it is, but with King Mott being so prevalent, you do see a lot of disable resist still in the game, so you may not get the full upside of the status effect because a lot of people still do hedge against it, at least from a tank perspective. And the Pugilist. So this job, unfortunately, kind of the same thing. I've kind of soured on this job overall. It's way too short range, not enough damage in my opinion. The modifiers are relatively low, and although a lot of people can't gear for strike resistances, it just doesn't hit as impactfully as some of the other types do. I do like iron body stance, depending if you're going against a certain more brawly physical comp and you happen to throw him in the mix, because obviously 15 defense isn't anything to sneeze about, but the rest of these, you're probably not going to get a ton of benefit out of them, to be honest. The other character info, so no limit break, and then the TMR, not a great TMR, very, very niche. It's an armor, not an accessory, so there's a big opportunity cost when you equip an armor in the TMR slot, because there are so many good armors in the game that offer other varieties of status resists or weapon type resists. The stats on this they're not that they're bad, 472 HP, 6 defense, 10 SPR, but the ability just kind of niche, where light attack and accuracy are okay, but not great. There's probably other ways to get modifiers in the game other than wasting a slot like this, where there's other more powerful, impactful TMRs to be had. Master ability, pretty standard HP and light attack for allies, and 10 SPR for himself. Notable vision card synergies. So this is where things get a little more niche and nuanced. He really doesn't have any. There's a bunch you could play with. To me, the Scions of Shadow is obviously one where dark resistance, light attack, all of these things do really great things for his kit overall. I think Fenrir is a really great synergistic one as well, where obviously it's a magic resist card, which is kind of what you're using for as a niche, but it also gives him more HP, which he already has a ton of, which is a good thing for his survivability. And then the agility 4, which he needs because he's only average at agility. And this dexterity 50 translates into about 10% extra accuracy, so definitely has some value. The clairvoyant astrologian, kind of the same concept, where it gives him more SPR, gives him unit resistance, which although you don't see a lot against Helena and some of the other characters, unit resistance is still valuable in the game. But the armor piercer ability is really the one that's super, super potent, where, as we mentioned, he doesn't have a lot of AoE in his kit, so being able to use this AoE ability gives him a ton of extra versatility, obviously helps damage output, and then extra acquired AP and extra attack both obviously help him, where his attack stats a little bit on the lower side, and this certainly helps it. So this is a really great card. I also like Snow White Guard to some degree, very niche, but it depends on what you're going against, if only because the penalty of HP down 15% isn't the biggest deal for him, given how high it starts out, but being able to give him this slash and missile resistance and the AoE resistance to him and any other light party members, it definitely has some potential use given what you see for meta and what kind of characters are going against you. But overall, not the best card, but it's something to think about. And then maybe Demon Wall. The thing only about this card, the luck can translate to some extra accuracy. He's not going to get the full benefit of the card per se, but it is Pierce attack up and slash resistance 12%, which obviously helps him and is kind of universal to the party, but probably not the best. So you really get to pick and choose, but these are probably the ones that come to mind when you talk about what are the best potential cards for him. For the notable Esper synergies, kind of the same idea. There's really no one clear-cut one, if only because Espers for missile damage and strike damage don't have a whole ton of impact, or oh, that's the missile Esper outside of Tetrasulfid, but even then, that's more the evasion Esper at this point. So, for Pierce, there are a couple, but still not perfect. To me, Titan's probably the number one. I can't wait for me to get a 3-star X upgrade here, where, Titan has the SPR nodes, it's got Pierce attack, decent stats, so if you are going for an anti-magic build, probably the one that has the most synergy with him, in addition to the attack 7% up as well. Just the stats are a little bit power crept, but not a huge deal. Ifrit's probably the full on DPS one, where you're obviously going for the Pierce attack, critical rate is a DPS boost, attack 7%, but then you're really just going for the extra HP, you're going for a much higher attack stat. That's really where things come down to, and you technically do get more accuracy because he's got higher luck, and that will help a lot. A Carbuncle, underrated one, believe it or not. I don't think this is the greatest, but it's not bad. You're obviously taking a small nerf here on your attack stat, but 25% Berserk resistance, so that's obviously a potential part of the King Mott meta, as the Berserk status ailment, which is not a ton of ways to guard against it. This potentially could hedge against it and be one though, but in addition to that, it does have light attack up 25. There are no dark weaknesses on this Esper, despite it being a light one, but it's got dark resistance of 15%, dark killer 25, so you can obviously use this if you're going against that like Black Rose Elena meta in ways that maybe not first apparent to most. And then finally Odin, that's like the generic DPS Esper. This one is great. It's just so much agility, which he does need. It's got great attack, got great HP, human killer, slash resist, missile resist, and the accuracy of 22. These nodes could be helpful again if you're trying to give them some extra accuracy. So great Espers overall. No real clear-cut favorite though. Finally, the weapon optimization is really only one. It's the Wind Spear. Obviously the 5 agility here is really important. I do like the accuracy. I like the crit build in particular for this because I think 18 accuracy and 15 crit are really massively important for him. Obviously, you lose 36 attack points, but not the biggest deal in the world. But this is definitely by far and away the best spear. I have Antique Naginata here, if only for a niche build for someone with super high defense, where this has defense penetration of 15. So if you are going against like a really high defensive unit and he just happens to be one that you're taking and he's already at 80% defense penetration, this is going to put him at 95. So he's going to be at almost 100% defense penetration, which means he's going to ignore the entire defense stat of the enemy. So niche, but worth mentioning, but obviously Wind Spear is the best. So that's Camillo in a nutshell. He's an interesting character. He's definitely going to have some interactions that are valuable in the game, and he's a good addition to the cast. I don't think he's changing any metas or changing anything in particular, but he's someone worth building if you have the resources and you notice a flaw going against Black Rose Elena at the moment. It's going to be a little bit harder now that Dwayne X is out, because Dwayne does have some good pierce resistance, but that remains to be seen how it all shakes out with some of the new characters anyway. But that's it in a nutshell. If you're building him, hope you're having fun with him so far. I know he's featured in the arena this week, and looking forward to doing some more content. We got a lot of new characters and next upgrades coming this week that I can't wait to talk about. So happy pulling, and I'll talk to y'all soon.